What if I told you that one of the Gilded Age's most powerful couples could be heading for a scandal that would shake the very foundation of their empire? That the charming and loyal George Russell might be hiding a betrayal so shocking it mirrors the scandal of a real-life Gilded Age marriage that crumbled under the weight of ambition, temptation, and public humiliation? History has a way of repeating itself, and when it comes to Bertha Russell, the past might be closer than she thinks. In The Gilded Age Season 3, Episode 8, George Russell's sudden departure from Bertha left fans stunned. It wasn't just a quarrel. It felt like the start of a fracture, the kind that could spiral into a full-blown separation. While George has been one of the most steadfast husbands on television, history offers us a chilling parallel that might hint at what's next. Bertha's character, after all, is inspired by the real-life Alva Vanderbilt, a woman who, despite her glittering social triumphs, faced a marital breakdown that played out in the public eye. The real Alva Vanderbilt wasn't born into the elite circles of New York high society. She was ambitious, determined, and strategic. Marrying William K. Vanderbilt gave her wealth and a seat at the table, but it didn't give her the old money pedigree that the Knickerbocker set valued. Like Bertha, Alva fought tooth and nail for recognition, hosting legendary balls, maneuvering her way into exclusive guest lists, and refusing to accept no as an answer. She wasn't content to be just another decorative wife. She was a force. But the man behind her, William K. Vanderbilt, was not George Russell. While George, a self-made titan, often uses his influence to support Bertha's ambitions, William was born into wealth and was less inclined to fight alongside his wife. And in time, he proved far less loyal. The marriage began to crumble under the weight of William's infidelity. Affairs were not uncommon in high society, but William's behavior was blatant, even humiliating. One of his most infamous relationships was with Parisian socialite Nellie Neuer, whom he openly paraded through the streets as though she were his second wife. For Alva, this was not just betrayal, it was a public wound. Divorce in the late 19th century was scandalous, almost unthinkable, especially for women in high society. Yet in December 1894, Alva made a move that shocked the world. She filed for divorce. To do so, she had to prove adultery in court, knowing full well that the press would devour every sordid detail. And they did. The Vanderbilt sensation, as newspapers called it, dominated headlines. By March 1895, the court ruled in Alva's favor, granting her custody of their 3 children, a massive settlement, and control over several properties. Still, victory came at a price. Friends abandoned her. Invitations stopped arriving. Some acquaintances went so far as to turn their backs in public. But Alva was far from defeated. She understood that survival in high society required bold moves, and she had one ready. That same year, she orchestrated one of the most famous society marriages of the era, her daughter Consuelo to the Duke of Marlborough. On the surface, it looked like pure ambition, a mother securing her daughter's place among Europe's nobility. But beneath the glittering facade, it was also a strategic shield. By aligning herself with British aristocracy, Alva protected her own social standing at a moment when scandal threatened to destroy her. The move was calculated, daring, and, in her mind, necessary. Now, when we look back at the Gilded Age, there are hints that Bertha may walk a similar path. In Season 3, she not only cemented her social dominance, but also broke ground by welcoming divorced women into her Newport ball, a decision that could be foreshadowing her own future. Could Julian Fellowes be preparing audiences for a twist where George betrays Bertha, mirroring William Vanderbilt's scandal? If history is any guide, the answer may be yes. And if that happens, Bertha won't go quietly. Like Alva, she will likely fight not just for her dignity, but for a social position that she's worked tirelessly to build. But betrayal has a way of changing even the strongest alliances, and in the glittering but cutthroat world of the Gilded Age, one scandal can erase years of triumph overnight. If George Russell were to betray Bertha, it would be more than a personal heartbreak. It would be a social earthquake. This isn't a man who lives in the shadows. George is a titan of industry, a man whose every move is watched by New York's elite, rival business tycoons, and the hungry press. In the tight-laced yet gossip-fueled world of the Gilded Age, rumors spread faster than telegrams, and the whispers of an affair would explode into full-blown scandal within days. Bertha, who has built her identity on control, elegance, and calculated dominance, would suddenly be forced into a role she has fought her entire life to avoid: the humiliated wife. This is where the parallels to Alva Vanderbilt's life become almost eerie. When William Vanderbilt's infidelity became impossible to hide, it didn't just damage his marriage, it tarnished Alva's hard-won social crown. In the eyes of their peers, a woman's status was tethered to her husband's conduct. An unfaithful husband was not simply a private disgrace, it was a public humiliation, a statement to the social world that she had been replaced, discarded, or worse, outplayed. The moment William appeared in public with Nellie Newer on his arm, the press framed it as a deliberate insult to Alva. That's the danger Bertha would face if George strayed. But Bertha Russell is not the type to suffer in silence. If the Gilded Age follows the emotional undercurrents of Alva's story, we could see Bertha reacting with both fury and strategy. She might seek revenge not through scandalous public displays, but through power plays so sharp they would draw metaphorical blood. In Alva's case, her counterattack was to take control of the narrative. She didn't wait for society to pity her. She made them fear her. Filing for divorce was a declaration of war, one that forced people to see her as the wronged party and her husband as the villain. Of course, in the fictional world, Julian Fellows could raise the stakes even higher. Imagine George's potential affair not being with a faceless socialite, but with someone dangerously close to Bertha's circle, a rival hostess, a social climber hungry for the spotlight, or even a married woman whose own scandal would entangle the Russells in a mess of reputations. This wouldn't just be about betrayal, it would be about territory, about who controls the highest seat at New York's social table. And yet, there's a compelling twist that history suggests but fiction could exaggerate. Reconciliation is not off the table. In the real world, some Gilded Age couples weathered the storms of infidelity by turning the marriage into a public alliance rather than a private romance. In these cases, both parties continued to benefit from the shared power of their union while leading largely separate personal lives. For Bertha, this could mean swallowing the betrayal in public while plotting her own private victories, alliances, social moves, and perhaps even discreet relationships of her own. Still, divorce would be the most shocking and dangerous route. The financial settlement alone could be monumental, but the social fallout would be even more treacherous. Bertha would have to navigate being both a divorcee and a power player, a combination rarely seen but not impossible. Alva Vanderbilt proved it could be done, though it required a masterclass in timing and manipulation. By arranging Consuelo's marriage to the Duke of Marlborough in the same year as her divorce, Alva ensured that her name remained not in the scandal pages, but in the society columns. If Bertha were to face such a crisis, she might have her own Gladys poised for a strategic marriage, a union that could turn gossip into awe. The right match could cement her legacy, shield her from disgrace, and even place her above her enemies in the social hierarchy. But such a move would also come at a cost. Gladys's future, like Consuelo's, could be traded for her mother's survival, and history tells us that these bargains often left emotional scars that lasted a lifetime. In the end, George's hypothetical betrayal would not just be a test of Bertha's marriage, it would be the ultimate test of her ability to survive in a world where power, reputation, and love are constantly at war. And if history repeats itself, Bertha might just turn her darkest moment into her greatest victory, even if it means sacrificing everything she once held sacred. If George Russell's rumored infidelity were to explode into the public eye, the consequences would be swift and merciless. The Gilded Age elite thrived on scandal, especially when it didn't involve them. In this glittering yet venomous world, your downfall was someone else's entertainment. The moment word spread, invitations to dinners and balls would quietly disappear. Former allies would keep their distance, pretending not to notice her at the opera. In a society obsessed with appearances, public silence was often the loudest condemnation. But Bertha Russell is not an ordinary society wife. Every move she has made since stepping into New York's drawing rooms has been calculated, purposeful, and aimed at one thing: victory. To her, survival is not enough. She has to win. And here's where her situation could split from Alva Vanderbilt's real-life path. Alva chose divorce as her ultimate power play, reshaping her destiny in a single stroke of legal daring. Bertha, on the other hand, might choose to weaponize the marriage itself, keeping George by her side not out of love, but as a living symbol of her continued dominance. Such a choice would be dangerous. Keeping George close would mean controlling the narrative completely, turning whispers of betrayal into a story of reconciliation, strength, and unity. In public, she could project an image of the perfect, unshakable marriage, even as the private reality told a very different story. This would not just protect her standing, it could also deny her rivals the satisfaction of seeing her broken. Still, history reminds us that such battles leave scars. Alva Vanderbilt may have triumphed socially after her divorce, but she also carried the weight of a marriage that had once been both her greatest asset and her deepest wound. Her daughter Consuelo's arranged marriage to the Duke of Marlborough became a gilded cage, and though it elevated their family name, it also robbed Consuelo of the chance to choose her own path. Bertha might face a similar crossroads with Gladys, using her daughter's future as a pawn in a game that demands a sacrifice. There's also the possibility that George's betrayal could unlock a darker side of Bertha we haven't yet seen. Betrayal has a way of hardening people, of stripping away the last traces of sentiment. If George crossed that line, Bertha might shed the last remnants of vulnerability, becoming not just a player in New York society, but its most formidable strategist, cold, brilliant, and utterly ruthless. She could build alliances not just with the old guard, but with the very people the elite fear most, ambitious newcomers willing to burn the rulebook. And if Julian Fellows chooses to echo the real-life aftermath of Alva Vanderbilt's story, Season 4 could become a masterclass in reinvention. Whether Bertha walks away from George with a sensational divorce or binds him to her in a loveless alliance, the effect would ripple through every salon, ballroom, and business deal in New York. It would challenge the rigid codes of the time, much as Alva's public split did in 1895, proving that women in the Gilded Age could be more than just silent ornaments in their husbands' worlds. One thing is certain: if this storyline unfolds, it will redefine Bertha Russell forever. She will either emerge as the tragic figure who lost everything to scandal, or the legend who turned betrayal into the greatest power move the Gilded Age ever saw. And in a world where appearances are everything, perhaps the most dangerous thing about Bertha is that she knows exactly how to make the world believe whatever she wants it to.